The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.
Hello and welcome to our broadcast of the 2023 Spring Chess Classic. My name is Julian Proleiko and I'm joined by Women's Grandmaster Tatev Abrahamyan as we take a look at both hotly contested tournaments.
Hello everyone and thank you for joining us. We are nearing the end of the tournament. Today is round 7 and we had a really bloody round yesterday, so let's see where that left us as far as the standings go. So in Group A, we have a three-way tie between Dariusz Swiercz, Christopher Yu, and Benjamin Bok. Benjamin Bok, who won 2 games in a row. The game from 2 rounds ago in round 5 with that really beautiful bishop versus knight endgame, and also yesterday that very interesting queen versus 3 minor pieces. And we have a big tie for 4th place with Illia Nyzhnyk, Benjamin Gledura, Daniel Dardha, and Yasser Quesada, all of whom are half a point behind, chasing the leaders. And in Group B, we had 2 decisive results, and we see Felix Blohberger, who won his game yesterday in clear first with 4.5 points. He grinded down that game against Akshat Chandra with the opposite colored bishops and rooks and queens. Was a bit of a complicated position, and he got the best of Akshat, and now he's in the lead. And Jason Liang, who also won his game yesterday, is half a point behind in 2nd place. In 3rd place, we have a tie between Viktor Mikhalevski and Akshat Chandra. Viktor won his game yesterday. He has actually 5 decisive results in this tournament. He's a very combative player. And Akshat, unfortunately, who lost his game, is at 3.5 points. And we have a tie for 5th place between Gergely Kantor, Dambasuren Batsuren, and Luka Budisavljevic.
So let's take a look at the format. These players are playing a game in 90 minutes with 30-second increments starting from move 1 and will last throughout the entire game. At move 40, they will receive an extra 30 minutes for the rest of the game with, of course, a 30-second increment. So the remaining rounds will be tomorrow at 1 p.m. and on Thursday they will actually begin 2 hours earlier at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. We will be with you every single day, 2 hours after the start of each round.
And let's take a look at what we had ahead, and let's take a look at the pairings. So we have 2 of the leaders in Group A playing each other, Benjamin Bok and Christopher Yu. And actually, as we're starting this broadcast, this game has ended. And our next key matchup of the day will be between Daro and Abhi. Abhi is not having a very good tournament so far, but of course he's a very strong player and very well prepared player. So let's take a quick look at the game between Benjamin Bok and Christopher Yu, and let's see how this game ended. And we see this game ended in a rook endgame with 2 versus 2. We can quickly take a look at how we landed here. So we have a Catalan with
No
bishop b4, no
h3.
This is not the World Championship. So bishop b4 check, and we have seen this line already several times here. So and queen c2. So trades in the center. So all of this so far is theory. So I see some top games: Wojtaszek versus Carlsen, Dingleran versus Anish Giri. So this is what we call hanging pawns, and usually this kind of pawns, so it's very common when we have an isolated pawn to transpose into hanging pawns whenever the trade happens on c6. So long-term hanging pawns are a weakness because there are no pawns on the adjacent files to defend them, so that's why they call hanging, so they can become a long-term target. But the compensation for hanging pawns is the same as for an isolated pawn piece activity. And in this position, rook goes to c1, targeting this, rook b8, indirectly attacking this b2 pawn, with the idea being takes, and takes on b2. So we trade on b4. Now this pawn is under attack, and b3.
Right. So I'd say one advantage over the hanging pawn, with hanging pawns over the isolated pawn, is it's much more difficult to win the backward pawn on c6, so it's easier to defend with something like bishop to d7. Just it's harder to get your pieces to attack that square. On the other hand, you don't have the C file and as you normally would with an isolated pawn to put your rooks and a queen on.
So another thing I noticed is this knight is not developed yet. This knight would like to be on d4 or c5, and a bit of a downside that this backwards, well, this pawn can move in the future, but there's a light square bishop. And so, but at the same time, this bishop is being blocked by this pawn, so there is nothing on the this diagonal is blocked. So bishop e6 is played, giving up this pawn, but this runs into a tactical problem because c1 is hanging. So actually this gives black an opportunity to develop the bishop on a better square on e6 rather than d7. So tactically it just works out. So white has to develop this knight. Knight goes to c3, which gives black the chance to play c5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, c5 is quite a committal decision, but probably now is the right time to play c5 when white has blocked the c file. When you have the pawn on c6, obviously it's harder to attack the d5 pawn, but when you play c5, you gain some space, so the d4 square is no longer available to white, and also it's harder to play something like knight a4, c5, because knight a4 might run into a move like c4 with black.
So c5 was played and the knight went to e2, rerouting to f4, and as you mentioned, something like this, c4 immediately or rook f c8, and followed by c4. I don't think it will be possible to take this pawn. This looks
Knight
knight
d7,
d7,
yeah.
maybe rook b5, all of these are options. So knight goes to e2, so rook f c8. So of course knight this rook is actually doing something on the b file, because at some point either c4 or a4 will come, so this b file will open. So rook f c8, knight f4, c4.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that black plays c4 once the knight can no longer go to the d4 square. So black times this such that white's response is not knight to d4, because that would be a good square for the knight.
Yeah, now tactically there is no time to reroute the knight, so takes on c4. A lot of trades are happening, bishop to g4. And we see that black got rid of all his weaknesses, so black has already is in no danger anymore because there is no hanging pawns and there is no isolated pawn.
Right. Why would black be worse? It's the exact same structure. If anything, maybe black's pieces are a little bit more active than white's, but maybe not. Also, white's pieces are pretty good.
So I think we're going to see more trades. So he doesn't want to take this because this. Maybe he didn't want to deal with this, so he goes rook c5. Captures happen. Luckily, there is no back rank mate, and pawn to a4, with the idea of playing rook to b2, and of course moving the pawn from the attack. Still no checkmate.
Yeah, and black was not foolish enough to fall for bishop d5, rook c8, which would be an unpleasant way to lose the game.
Yes. So all of these trades happen, and we see how the game ended. So both kings are cut off, pawns get traded, and as we reach move 40, as the rules dictate, not draw before move 40. Once we're at move 40, the players agree to a draw. Seems like a fair result, a pretty balanced game. And the next game is Daro versus Abhi.
Which becomes a pretty important game, right? Because the two leaders drew each other. So if Daro wins this game, then he will manage to catapult himself into clear first, not just joint first.
So what is your first impression of this game? As we did see Daro at the board thinking while his opponent was away. And Daro has actually a head on the clock, almost 40 minutes to 16 minutes on move 33.
Yeah, unfortunately for Daro, I actually like black's position better here because I like the king on e7 and the two central pawns. I think the e pawn is a little isolated. I don't think that white should be like losing or anything, but I would much prefer to play black's position here.
Yeah, I also prefer black's position. The bishop is just a better piece, and the pawn structure favors black. There's a clear weakness. This looks like a Sicilian endgame, and usually Sicilian endgames favor black because of the structures. And let's see how we got here. So e4, c5. So we got here from, I'm assuming would be Najdorf. Mishra is a Najdorf player.
Mm-hmm.
So bishop b5, we saw this Christopher Yu game. Queen f3. And in that game, after h6, queen h3 was played. Yeah. But here, Daro plays bishop f6, which is the main line, and h4.
Knight b6. This is some like very modern theory, I suppose. I'm not super familiar with Najdorf theory.
Yeah, I've never played this bishop g5 lines. I prefer playing the English attack with f3, bishop e3.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes
Pure aggression.
Yeah, so this is all is so far. So rook d2 is the more common move here. So I see some games that have been played. So rook goes to d3. And this tension is interesting because black doesn't really want to touch this for a while. White is also not certain if they want to capture. And it is clear that the black king is going to go to queenside. There is no way for black to ever castle this side. And it then becomes a question of whether or not the king will be safe on this side, because the rook is ready to go on the c file, and the structure is such that it's possible that the king will get attacked there too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the reason why you don't ever want to castle kingside here is like in opposite side castles positions, obviously the side that can attack first is the one who is probably going to win the game, and white is just so far ahead here, and plus there's lots of structural damage. Black is probably just dead.
So let's go to the game, and in the game he took on h6, which I think is a bit of a committal move because there's still useful moves white can make, like king b1. Whenever we castle queenside, king b1 is a useful move to defend this a2 pawn, and usually they say queenside castle is a two-move castle because you have to play king to b1. So I don't.
Yeah. I mean, as a St. Louis player, Ben Feingold's rule was always, if you castle queenside, always play king b1.
Yeah,
so,
it's
well familiar.
Like 99% of the time, I think it's a useful move. But I'm wondering if he didn't like hg because that's the only reason why you would take it. Because the downside of taking, immediately white gives himself this weakness. And I thought maybe he would follow up with something like, but queen g3 runs into rook g6, so this also is not a big deal. But I'm not sure why give ourselves this weakness. Maybe the idea is to play h5, rook g1.
Was queen g3, rook g6 so clear though? Because after rook g6, queen h2, I think white might be threatening something like h5 or f5, dislodging the rook and trying to go after black's king immediately.
So if I do something like this.
Yeah, well, against queenside castles, I was thinking more h5 because you got your king out of the center, and then, yeah, maybe I can target the g7 pawn.
Or immediately, maybe you can. No, immediately you can because this guy hangs, unfortunately. Yeah, we need like to do this in a smart way. Because if we go queen g3, I think I will take or even play g6. Well, okay, here I'm also...
I'm noticing that maybe I had like a trick. So after you queenside castle, I can move my knight somewhere. I don't know if knight d5 right away probably doesn't work because you can play ed, rook c3, then knight c4, which is unfortunate. And yeah, I guess you just cover with b5 here because b3, queen a3. I actually get checkmated immediately. But maybe I can move my knight away to a more normal square like e2 or d1 to e3.
Okay.
I don't know.
So I sidestep?
Can I try knight e3 here? I just try and take my h4 pawn. Okay.
No, I'm not threatening your h pawn at all.
Yeah. f5 maybe?
I'm not sure you want to do this. I feel like you're creating too many weaknesses.
Too many weaknesses.
Yeah, luckily for me, this rook... Okay, let's go back a
maybe
few
this
moves.
knight.
So maybe here...
So good.
So here, queen... Queen h2 I like because I'm eyeing this pawn. So castle... Is there a clever way of doing things?
Maybe just bishop e2, rook d1.
So bishop e2, no, this is not a threat yet. But now actually we're threatening, so let's say you pass. I think I'm actually threatening this, right? Or no? Oh, you wanted rook d1.
Yeah, I just wanted to go after the d pawn.
Ah, so maybe then I don't even need to rush. Maybe I can go rook d1, so maybe. So let's, excuse me. I really like the bishop on e2 because whenever I go h5, the bishop will defend this square, this pawn.
Now I can go, well, h5 and then queen g3 because G6 I think runs into queen G5, and if you must take because your rooks are attacked in a bad way, and then H6. I think white has a positional advantage here.
Yeah, this looks really nasty because I think I'm on time to do this. Yeah, because of this one tempo. If I had time to go F6, I'd be okay. But let's say you defend this and I go rook F1. And immediately targeting and not allowing you to break through. Maybe rook F3 is better, so I don't allow the knight to join the game.
Yeah, it seems very pleasant for white here, in my opinion.
Yeah, so maybe there was some trick with this queen G3, but he played A3, which is, I would think, why not just A3 immediately? Or he probably didn't like this trade, so this is, and like castle.
Mm-hmm.
And then just keep the tension on the H file and basically say if you take on H8, I take back, and otherwise I just keep this tension forever and maybe make some useful moves like king B8, rook C8, knight C4, or bishop C6. And if I need to at some point take on H1. So
right, there's no way for white to force a trade on the H file in his favor. So that makes a lot of sense.
So I think he did this. So he's playing fast, so this is preparation by him. Actually, let me see how much time he spent. No, he spent no time. He actually gained time with this move. So I think he just likes this imbalance. So A3, queen G4, going after the pawn. Now queen D1 with a tempo, queen F2. So he doesn't want to play here because...
So B4 is ambitious, but it might just win material. Yeah.
After B4, the queen doesn't have a... So if I go here, this must be...
Yeah.
This is queen, right?
No, I was thinking rook D6 was good.
Oh, no, this is hanging. We need to stay in the third rank.
No, but am I not winning your rook on F7? Oh, I'm hanging everything. So my line was queen D6, then queen C3, queen F8, then if you go king C7 and queen F7, and then I take on G6. But unfortunately for me, I think I'm the one that's hanging material at the end.
You're getting mated, right?
Yeah.
Conveniently, this defends it, so I think this is just mate.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Nice resource for black.
Okay, so A3, this was the idea. So, okay, so this was all his idea to do this. He's trying to trap the queen. So queen D1 played immediately, and black responds with queen F2. So bishop C6, okay, actually bishop C6 is a move that traps our queen because we take away the square. And the claim is there is no good way to defend because this will run into maybe not the end, but can be annoying. So instead queen went to F2 after the F4 pawn, which is very logical. So we repeat the position. Of course, black is quite happy with this repetition. And then takes on D6. And I don't like this pawn trade for white because you're trading this weakened D6 pawn for an F4 pawn. And now we see how we got stuck with this pawn.
Right. I think once you trade the F4 pawn for D, this is very favorable in the knight orphan general because if you can put a piece on E5, it can't really be dislodged by anything. So I've seen positions where the knight is very strong on E5 and even the queen could be on E5.
And in knight orphan, we even sometimes see when there's a black pawn on H6, right? They go G5, they sacrifice a pawn like this just to get this E5 square. Now black got it for free.
Who did that a lot? There was an American grandmaster.
I want to say Kasparov.
It was Walter Brown, right? Walter Brown was playing that way a lot, I believe.
So rook on F2, possibly. I'm not familiar. So H5, H6. I wonder if white is already doing a bit of damage control here. Okay, now we see the knight is going there, so
white immediately trades off the knight on E5 because if the knight were left on E5 by itself, I think black has a very nice position.
Also, if white takes this is quite a nice exchange for black because you make a move, the knight goes back, and this knight against this bishop is very strong.
Yeah, every day we say how strong bishops are and how bad knights are, but I think this is one of those cases where the knight on E5 is just dominating the bishop. The bishop doesn't have very many squares that actually matter.
Okay, so knight F3, forcing a trade, rook G8, rook H7, and forcing all the trades. So we're on move 35. The question is f5 is a huge threat, taking advantage of this pin, or can I simply play king here and centralize my king? But I also think this king goes to the center. But the downside of this is now I'm attacking this pawn. Maybe you can play f7 and then move this rook, and at some point try to get f5, get a pass pawn, and play for activity there.
Right. I think this endgame, even if objectively is equal, is very practically hard to play for white. I think black is pressing here, which is bad news for Daro. He obviously would like to win this game with white and be in the sole lead, but I don't think it quite worked out for him that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's as bad as we're making it sound. The white does. A lot of pieces have come off, a lot of pawns have come off, which is always helpful for the defensive side. And even in that position where we went with centralized king, which is very logical, right? And now maybe something like rook h3, trying to check you, and then b4, c4, b5. If I manage to make all these moves, I'll be quite happy. And let's say, okay, let's pass the move. You don't allow check, I go here, you go here, and then maybe I can reroute my rook and go c4 and just try to trade a lot of pawns. So I think closer to, okay, like of course I prefer black here too, but I think closer to equality than black having real chances.
Fair enough.
I think that would be my assessment, especially at this level, because it's just so hard to win games at this level.
Yeah. So while Daro is thinking about this, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the B pairings?
Yeah, and in section B we had a sole leader, Felix Blohberger, and he is he's playing Viktor Mikhalevski today, and this is our key matchup of the day. And we see Mikhalevski, he drew his first game, and he's very consistent. He wins with he drew with black, and then he wins with white and loses with black. so we see 1-0, 1-0, 1. And today remains a question mark, and Felix did win 2 games in a row, so he's on a hot streak. So let's jump to this game and see how it is going right now. And wow, we see, actually we were analyzing it before, so let's look at the live position that we have. And we see some kind of a crazy imbalance, 2 rooks, 2 bishops, all aiming at the king, but unfortunately it's white to move, so black doesn't have time to deliver one of the many threats.
Yeah, it's a queen and pawn for rook and bishop, which is obviously a huge material deficit for black. But the rooks on the second rank are scary to deal with. So white needs to find something concrete here, or he's at risk of not winning this game.
So what are the threats? So 1 checkmate, 2 checkmate.
I think rook b2 and bishop g6, I think, are all pretty massive threats.
So so in this position, I have to take on f7. I don't think any other move makes sense.
Well, we could also check on the back rank, right? I don't know if that helps us or hurts us, but I think we can do it. Then like queen c7. Oh, you go there to stop me.
I don't know where I go. So let's say here, you check. So I cannot go on adventures. Or can I go on adventures? No, you still have checks. I don't think this will work. So I think I will have to go back.
Yeah, you can't go to f8 because queen d8 would be checkmate, I believe. But
to turn on aura.
Yeah,
okay,
but if
so king e8 also does not feel good.
Right here, can I take on f7, and if you recapture, I take on c6 and take on g2?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
So here I was thinking king f8 because I have so many threats. I don't think you have time to.
Yeah, now we even have a queen for a rook pure, and it still isn't easy based off of black's activity.
I wanted to take because if you take with the rook, I'm quite happy with it. You take with the king. Now,
actually, maybe yeah. This seems like white should win. Yeah, a4. I remember there was some like semi-Slav game between Karpov and Anand with a very similar material imbalance that Karpov ended up winning.
With the queen versus bishop and rook?
No, it was queen and there was like this exact endgame, but like mirrored. So white had the pawns on the other side of the board, but it was queen and 2 pawns, a queen and 3 pawns versus rook and 1 pawn.
So what did we play here? We checked, right? So maybe I went, can I go here?
Stopping queen c7, yeah.
So you check. I go here.
Oh, and I just don't have time anymore. So queen b8 would be a massive mistake. You just shuffle your king from d7 to d8, and there's no more progress to be made.
Is this also, yeah, this also sounds run. So bishop f7 then has to be the only move, right? By process of elimination. So it's Felix to move. We see he's thinking. Let's see how much time he has spent. He has spent 6 minutes already. So this is a critical moment because here he actually has to find something, because there are too many threats in the position that cannot be ignored.
Yeah.
So
luckily, if you take on f7, which I don't think you should do, but if you play rook f7, then I think queen a8 is a better version, because after king d7, we have queen b7. And unlike in previous positions where you could afford to play king d8, you cannot do that because the rook's hanging on f7. And next we will take on c6 or give some sort of check that wins the game.
Yeah, but as we saw, that checks can be actually hurtful for us, right? I like how we're always on the winning side. When one side is winning, we're like, it's us.
Yes, yes, of course. No, I never want to play a losing position.
So you have to check. Well, okay, your queen is hanging,
Yeah.
so you have to check. I cannot go on the f file. It's just silly. I'm blocking my rook, so I have to go here.
Queen c7. Oh, I didn't change anything. Never mind.
So you have to do this. And I think, how did we get to that position where we took on d6? But I think because we took on d6 because we made it was this line. So let me go back, see how we got here. But we made a mistake, right? Oh yeah, because we went king e7. But now we realize just check is a mistake. So he has to take. So king f8, I think this is also a possibility.
Right. I wasn't sure what White was doing against this, to be honest with you.
So I have to check you. I know that much. I think at some point this has to be taken. The problem is the king can take. So maybe I need to be... Okay, finally I'm blundering. So I have to go to a square you cannot check. So this is how I know it's a blunder. So I have to go here. But we saw this position, right? We saw a version of this.
Yeah, but maybe here Black's king is just running.
In the other position, the rook was on f7.
Right, so we, like here, queen c8, king e5, and I think that Black's king will just end up running to d4 and to safety. All the squares are somehow like controlled, and like king c5 or yeah, king c. Oh man, I don't know why that's a blunder. Why is that losing?
Because okay, let's see, check. I think you cannot go on the A file, and if you go here, I have this. I still don't see the mate, but is this mate?
You know, it's getting really scary. Okay. If I saw this far, I wouldn't have gone for this line, obviously.
Wait, but there has to be something easier, right?
Oh, there's queen b. It's mate in 2, or well, some small number. Queen b6, and if king a4, then c5, and if king c3, queen b3.
Oh,
you have to go to d2, and then queen c2, queen c2, king e3, queen e4. No, rook. It's still. Oh, okay. There we go. Finally.
My rooks are. I had one game where my opponent's king ran all the way to g2. I checkmated him. Actually, I was very happy he allowed me to do it. It was satisfying.
Nice.
Okay, so we got here by force. All of this has to happen. I actually don't even know what the position is because I don't see the... Okay, I see the red square. So we made 10. So, okay, but apparently king c5 is a mistake. So
maybe just king d3, keep going.
King d3, there's probably check from h3. And now I go here.
Oh, wow.
And I stopped mate.
Well, my king is conveniently stopping my rook from going to b2. That's unfortunate.
This is a funny line. This is a very entertaining game. It's very entertaining to analyze. Maybe not as entertaining to play.
Yeah, I'm sure both players are really stressed. It's very easy for us. Well, if we make a mistake, we can take it back. You're like, oh no, every move, the price is so high.
So the important thing is he takes on f7, because if he checks, he has to realize that king d7 and he cannot make progress because it's just too many threats and he cannot do it. So the key is you have to take on g7 with a check at some point, right? we saw it in another line, and then you defend this b2 with checks, and then you push your a4 pawn. So the key is that this rook, so this rook is actually a very funny piece because it's on the 7 rank, so it looks very threatening and very scary, but at the same time it's not really part of the game because there's this threats on the 1st rank, and also you cannot do anything with a check. So you need everything has to be done by force here. We don't have time for a quiet move here.
Yeah, but at the same time he's thinking, and he's such a strong player obviously, that there must be like another candidate move besides bishop f7, like maybe queen e3 or something is what he's thinking about. But yeah, even here you just lose.
I'm sure there are many candidate moves, but I think bishop f7 from process of elimination, right, which is a way to find moves in chess. You just eliminate all the options and you're like, okay, I have to play this. I think bishop f7 is the only one.
That's fair. If you know that one move is like, you're definitely going to make that move, do you still calculate, or do you just make that move and think about it later, like typically?
I have a very bad habit of just calculating anyways. I used to be even worse. Like if I was in check and my king had only one move, instead of just making this one move, I would sit there and calculate what's going to happen next, which is ridiculous. Of course, let your opponent think and make your move, get your 30 seconds, and then decide. But the problem is, like, I think about it, and then my opponent makes a move that I was expecting, and I still think about it. So it's just kind of pointless. If you know you have one move, just make it. Like, sometimes I have this inner talk, you know?
He did it.
He
You
took
said,
on f7?
if you just have one move, make it. And then he played, it's like he can hear you.
Oh, no. That's not good for him. But sometimes I have this inner monologue. Like I'm calculating a move, and then at some point I spend like 15, 20 minutes, and I'm like, okay, you haven't looked at any other move. You know you're going to play this move. Like, why are you still sitting here? Just make your move. If it's bad, at least you have time on the clock, so just make it. So like I have this inner monologue, and then I convince myself to make a move. But this comes from being a bit of a time travel addict, which I think a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah. And I would say it's an experience thing, but I think it's just a personality thing. There are some people that move too fast. Like I'm definitely one of those people that moves too fast sometimes. And there are other people that don't move fast enough. Somehow it's never right. There's no magic formula.
Grishchuk, right? He just spends forever, and you cannot say he lacks experience. The guy has been around forever. He played in every possible candidate, World Police Championship or Rapid Championship, but he still takes a lot of time. Lanier too, like in the American Cup, we saw him so many times make a move with a second left on this clock.
Yeah, and Nepo has lost many games because he moved too fast, right? These things just last forever.
Yeah. And, you know, I have to say, sometimes when you see someone make a move with a second left, that second seems to last so long. When you're playing, you're like, wait, how did you do that? I thought you were going to flag in 1 second.
Yeah, the worst is when you play somebody and they make a move with a second left many moves in a row. You're like, how can you do that? Like, not once did you flag?
Gets frustrating.
Incredible.
And here he is choosing between king f8 and rook f7. Actually, let's see how we got here, because I just looked at the opening, and this is looking very familiar. So he's, you know, all his games he's played this, right? So first round, he drew against Kirk, and then he lost the game in this line, and then he's playing it again. So he's, you know, very dedicated to this line.
He lost to Luka, I believe. Is that true? Somebody who played d3. No. He lost to Kantor, right?
Oh yeah. When
right.
It was this d3, d4 line,
right? Yeah. He lost to Kantor in this line, so d3 was repeated again. Kirk played the move d4, so I guess people have sort of figured out that d3 is the way to punish this line, not putting the pawn on d4.
Oh, and this is the same game. This is what happened in the previous game?
Right.
No, this is what we were analyzing. This.
So I asked the question, why was knight e4 not played? And then he played some other move in the previous game, and this time he played knight e4. So
there you go.
I guess it depends.
And we had some line, right, where this rook was somehow...
Yeah, I think it was like h4 and then bishop c3 takes, rook e4, bishop e2, rook h4.
Yeah.
And somehow the fact that the dark squares are weak doesn't really matter because we control all the relevant squares.
Instead he plays queen d2, which is a sane move. So d6 and castle. But I would really prefer this position with white, because I think white's moves are so easy. This h4, h5. This attack is just too strong. So the idea is at some point maybe to take and take on e4, but this is too weak. And c6. But now with this, of course, you cannot take this way. You cannot just open the whole file. You have to take with f takes g6, and at least you have the h7 pawn. At some point, you can defend the pawn. Whereas if you take this way, then you have to defend that, like the file is just wide open. So this is too scary. So this is, again, a sane move. f4, bishop h8. So it's good things about bishop. If it's an open diagonal, it doesn't matter where the bishop is. It does the same task. And f5, knight e4, which apparently is a mistake. Although I can see why it's a mistake, because now the bishop comes in. It's kind of funny that your own pieces get in the way of your other pieces, right? This pawn structure gets in the way of this bishop. And actually by winning a pawn, black is freeing white's attacking piece. Yeah, so black should not have done this.
I'm not totally sure what black should have done though. So what would you do with black? Because
I would be so scared.
I have, yeah, I would be terrified. Like my opponent played f5 and I'm about to get checkmated. I totally understand taking the e4 pawn. At least if I'm going to suffer, I'd rather be up material.
Or something like queen f6. And now knight e4 is a threat. Nope. I said it like knight e4 is a threat, question mark, and no, it's not. But at least I'm, you know, eyeing this pawn.
Maybe
I can
maybe
take
rook e4 is a threat, or no?
So if I pass,
well,
let's say you want to do this.
Right, and then knight e4 and bishop f5, maybe.
Yeah, this looks quite strong.
Because somehow the rook on e8 doesn't feel like it's contributing, but the knight on e4 feels like very nice for black.
Yeah, maybe queen f6 or queen e7, which of course apparently is a mistake. Yeah, I like your move of rook e4. Rook e4 looks very strong. But maybe here I even want to take, and if you allow me, something like this, I think I might actually take.
Wow.
Because if you take, I think you're going to regret it. And the thing is, once I put a bishop on g6, you don't have an attack because I'm controlling this bishop once again. You don't have a square. You cannot move the knight, right? Actually, you don't have a square to move the knight, and b2 is hanging. So I think this one is okay.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, knight e4, I understand taking this pawn. You know, you've put all your pieces to take this pawn, but immediately we see this problem.
Maybe taking the way that this can be described as taking the e4 pawn is bad because it allows white to put to trade h pawns, whereas in other positions we were captured on g6 with a piece. So the fact that black doesn't have a pawn on h7 like kind of hurts him here.
Yeah, you really wish you had a pawn. Actually, you wish you had this pawn back, right? Assuming you don't get mated on the g-file. But now all these pieces, look at this. In one move, by just giving up a pawn, every single piece is in the attack. Whereas, again, we see this problem. So he went bishop e5. I was thinking he would go bishop f5, at least try to maybe queen d7, and again, bring the queen somehow into the game. But it's hard to give up the pawn back when you know you just want a pawn and you're like, okay, at least I grabbed the pawn for my suffering. He went bishop e5, with the idea is he is stopping this because instead of taking back, you have bishop f4.
Nice internet, so.
So king b1, sidestepping, still threatening this. And now bishop e6. But now, okay, so now he won the queen. And now this is where the suffering begins. So rook f2, and apparently queen h6 was a mistake. Why is a queen h6 mistake? It looks like such a natural move.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, queen h6 was my first candidate move, and I don't think I could stop myself from playing that.
Okay, I'm threatening mate. No, very good at spotting this.
Yes.
So you want rook f2. So
I agree.
You have to block this. So one move is bishop g7, but this cannot in any way, shape or form be good.
Right.
Because you just lose. So you cannot go to e7, I take the bishop, you go back, I just take everything. So this cannot be a good move. So here?
Wow.
I mean, there's no other way, right? There's no other way to stop mate. I mean, I'm not going to go this way.
F7, but rook f7, and if I take on, if I take g6, you take g6 and play bishop f5. No, it's check. Hold on. Then why is this working? Bishop g6? What do you do here?
This is a bit of a mystery.
Because rook f6, it's queen h8, which is tough. Rook g7, it's also queen h8.
So I cannot take. I cannot. Where can I go?
If you go to f2 now, you go to f2 now, and giving away the the g6 pawn helps you.
Okay, I understand. I mean, the only way I can understand this by just looking at what happened in the game and by having this the bar telling me this is good, because what happened in the game after rook f2, rook f2, and queen c7, whereas in this ridiculous line of allowing this, you don't have time to do this because your bishop hangs. Or apparently it's also mate.
What a nuance.
Ah, but this is also mate. But what is the difference? Ah, your bishop on d3 is defending c4. Okay, there's no way to ever figure this out at the board, that somehow giving up your g6 pawn is...
Like, this is like a black to play and survive problem, and the answer is rook f7, and good luck coming up with that as a person with blood running through your veins instead of silicone.
No, this is no way you're ever finding this. So he takes, I mean, the way black is playing is just so human. You put your rooks on the second rank, your bishops are aiming, and I think here very logically and very like human thinking is you think you have good compensation because I have rooks on the second rank, 2 bishops, I'm not getting mated.
Yeah,
my bishop is covering it.
Before I saw the bar, I actually didn't even know who was better. Like, I thought that black had lots of activity and white's king is quite weak. I mean, okay, I knew that white couldn't really be worse because you can give perpetual, but I wasn't sure if it was just perpetual or not.
So he plays rook h7, the rook comes in. So now we see he picks up a few pawns. So the king has to go here. The king cannot go anywhere where it's touching this bishop, because then we take it with a check. And the whole point of for black, the only reason he's surviving is because, well, not this one, this mating threat. So now we see he grabs another pawn. So this is going to be key, because in a lot of positions at the end when we take on g7, the reason white is going to win is because of this passed pawn. So, you know, whenever you have this kind of free moves to grab pawns, definitely do them. You also get moves in, you get closer to move 40. So bishop g6 was played, right? Sorry, let me promote this. This confuses me a bit. So bishop g6 was played, and this is impossible because this guy hangs. So bishop went to f7, he took, and after something, he actually spent 9 minutes. That's a substantial amount of time. He took on f7. So we're debating between take on f7 and king f8, and of course, that's what he was considering. There's no other legal move in the position that made sense. Actually, it's funny, because if you just go the other way, I think the easiest way for me is to just win a piece. Enough of this nonsense. Yeah. Just let me win with my extra piece. So bishop f7, and takes, and rook f7 on the board. So this queen, so if I check from here, I don't think it matters where I check from. Actually, it probably does. Queen b8, right? So here, check. What were we doing here? We're going to e6, right?
Yes. All the moves have been played in the game, and black chose to move king to d7, it looks like.
Is there a difference here between king d7 and king e7?
Oh, there's a huge difference.
Oh, you're not threatening this.
Wow. So this king d7 might have been a decisive mistake, because with the king on e7, rook b2 is certainly a threat because f7 is defended, but rook b2 here is unplayable due to queen b2 and rook f7, and the king and pawn ending at the end might be like simply winning. Well, by might be, I mean it's definitely winning. Queen b2, bishop b2, rook f7, king e8. King b2 is probably the simplest way to win. The king's just not inside the square of the a pawn, and you will lose the game.
Yeah, very nice. Wow, this is such a big subtlety. And when when you're playing and when you're thinking, sometimes it's very hard to kind of see the difference between. You're like, it's the same. Maybe he didn't want to go king e7 because queen c7 troubled him, and maybe he didn't realize king e6 is good. So let's see if Felix is reaching for a move. King d7 is the position. So there's still a mated threat. This is the biggest threat in the position, and a4 will stop this threat. And rook f2 here, which is a really annoying move, tactically runs into a skewer.
Yeah, or even queen a7, which attacks both, which attacks all of your pieces. Attacks the rook on g7, via X-ray and the rook on f2.
Oh, he did play a4, and I
Wow.
think this is going to be game over.
So Felix
soon.
was in clear first before this round, and now it's looking like he's separating himself from the rest of the pack.
And if he wins this, it's going to be his third win in a row. So that must feel so good in such a strong field. You're winning 3 games in a row. What a great feeling. And yesterday he had a very long game against Akshat. It was a very long grind. And today's game is very different from that game. This is a very straightforward attack. And it looks like things are really going his way. It's hard to find a move for black here. Maybe you have to go back king e7. But in this position, as you mentioned, that king and pawn endgame is winning, so I might just keep pushing the pawn because, again, this is not possible.
Yeah, if it was winning before, it's extra winning now.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
What am I doing? And the square is even shorter, and once I move my pawn, next move, you make some kind of a move. I push my pawn, and my pawn is queening here. So this is actually a4 was a really nice move by Felix. And Mikhalevski's turn. He has 6 minutes to make 4 moves, but unfortunately, I think the position doesn't really offer much anymore. So what else can he play? He went king e6, so now he goes king e6. And can we keep pushing this pawn?
Yeah, without these mating threats, I think the black's position becomes a lot worse. Yeah. So.
Okay.
The king on d7 was the bishop was pinned, and now it isn't.
So now you can do this, and now you take. So the difference between these king moves, this one move, is like one placement of the king changes the position, and now this will be a draw. I think most moves here will be a draw.
Probably rook f2 is what I would play to try and get, well, yeah, like rook f1 back to go rook a1.
Yeah, maybe even king e5 is okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
King e5 trying to win.
I think many moves. I think I would try to trade pawns and just make a draw. After so many adventures, I just feel like it's over.
But luckily with the pawn on a4, black isn't threatening the same sorts of checkmates that he was in the previous positions. So we can maybe even give our rook on g7 eventually. Yeah, give some check, take the c6 pawn, and again we'll achieve queen and 2 versus rook. Well, queen and 3 versus rook and 1. 2 rooks and 1.
So if I block, what will you play here? Can I take? Very tempted to take. And my claim is after you take, I'm threatening rook g7. But I don't know if I'm thrilled about what I'm doing here. I kind of want to go into...
I mean, concretely, maybe we're just winning a piece here.
How? I have to make a move.
Right.
Always.
Right.
I have to put my rook somewhere where it doesn't hang, which is a huge problem.
Yeah, so I see. So if you go rook f2, then I go rook g.
No, but here you, right? No, actually you don't. Do you win a piece?
Yeah.
I wanted to do.
Yeah. So after, instead of queen g4, I can take on g7, right? And then if rook takes g7, queen b7.
Ah, yeah, we saw this motif already. Yeah, that's cleaner actually, because if you go king g4, yeah, of course if I go on the 7 rank, you take it, but if you go to c6, d8, and again there's a mating threat and getting annoying again.
Right, and if you go to f6, then I have queen h4, which collects your rook on f2. So I just don't think there's a square, and also king f7 is rook g7.
Yeah, so f2 is not a square, but okay, so once we're getting to a position where most moves, oh, maybe I can go here. But here there has to be something, right?
No, it's queen
queen
d5, king f6, queen f. Oh wait, actually no.
If I go here, it's the same motive, so I have to go here. But
I was thinking queen f3, but
oh no, we can change the move order, right? You can start with this move.
Oh, that's nice. Takes and then king f6, queen f3. Nice.
Wait, but I go here.
No, then queen b7 protects queen and queen f3.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a
Nice.
big concept, right? Whenever you have an idea that doesn't work out, sometimes changing the order of the moves is what makes it work.
Yeah.
Like if A, B, C doesn't work, you go like A, C, and then B.
For sure, yeah.
Okay, so where are we in the position? we are king e6. I keep misclicking things, and we're considering queen e8. But there's probably a lot of moves here. Maybe queen c8 is also a possibility. Maybe it's, I don't think bringing the move back. So rook b2 is a threat, so he has to play a check. But I think this is quite clean. And here he must have many moves. I don't think queen c6 is the only one. Maybe queen c8 is something already. The thing is, like, if I take on g7 and then take on c6, for example, if I check you, you go somewhere and I take, like, this has to be winning.
Right. Yeah, what I was thinking before your very clean queen c6 move was you would play, would play the move rook d7 with white, and then I would just take on g7, rook g7, and queen c6, and get a very similar endgame.
Out here?
Yeah, like rook g7 because you can't take with the other rook, and then queen c6. I thought this endgame was pretty nice for white.
Yeah, this will be very hard to stop this pawn, and I mean, maybe still some fight left. Still 2 rooks. But at some point I will bring my king, play b4, a5, and this would be a win. Might take a few moves, but I see Mikhalevski is thinking. I think he's reflecting back on the game, trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong. And so I think this should be headed towards a win for Felix. Of course, every time we say this, something bad happens. But he has quite a bit of time. He has 8 minutes left, so he's already spent around 5 minutes thinking about this. And maybe he's already calculating till the end. Maybe he's just considering rook g7. But we expect him to be able to convert this.
Yeah, for sure. So while Felix is thinking about this position, do you want to check out some other games?
Yeah, let's take a look at the game by Jason Liang and Akshat Chandra. Actually, I learned today that Jason won the Grand Prix, US Grand Prix 2022. You know, when you play all these tournaments in the US, they all have like Grand Prix points, and then it works like the usual Grand Prix in the world, and then you collect enough and you win it, and I think you win a prize.
Wow.
So he actually won it. So he's been really grinding because you have to play in all these open tournaments. And the position we have, h5 is played. I expect this is headed towards a draw.
Yeah, it makes sense that he's played in a lot of tournaments because I believe I played in an event with him last year and I saw his rating was like 2370 and now it's 2530, which is just quite a jump.
And it's so hard to gain rating in open tournaments because you're playing so many underrated kids and it's just such a grind with 2 rounds a day. So I think this is such a huge achievement to gain so many Grand Prix points. So I'm expecting this will happen. This pawn will be taken and the game will end in a draw. Of course, black cannot do this. As,
right. We both queen, but when I queen, it's checkmate.
Unfortunately, it's not with a check, and this will be mate. But the position we have on the board, h5 looks like it's trying to get rid of everything. I don't think king g5. Maybe white can try here. Can white try here, actually? If I take.
So your idea is to play king h6 using my pawn as like a shield.
Well, I have an f pawn, which I think is more annoying than your pawns. So if, let's say, something like this. I mean, I'm using the fact that I have 2 passed pawns. Like your h pawn, I'm attacking it, I'm close to it, and your king is passive, I have an active king. So he did go king g5, so he is trying to play for a win, actually. And the thing is, the evaluation tells us it's equal, but practical aspect is very different. And also, Akshat did lose a game yesterday, a long grind, so he may not be in the best mindset. So, you know, you're just putting pressure on your opponent and the practical aspect of it, and just, you know, letting your opponent, giving your opponent the chance to make a mistake.
Yeah. Of course, a computer will be able to hold this with black, but if you agree to a draw as white in all of these sorts of positions, then you're just leaving points on the table. Black is not going to hold this 100% of the time, and that is why white is trying to play for a win.
And it's not like every time Magnus wins his endgames is because he has an advantage or he has a winning position, right? He just plays his positions, tries to create chances, gives his opponent a chance to make a mistake. They make one, maybe they become slightly worse, they have to play precise, and then they make another one, then keeps getting worse and worse, and then you win the game. So something like this. So let's see how we can play for a draw. So I don't, okay, so if I go h4, So you push. I go for this pawn. So this pawn actually starting to become a bit dangerous. So my idea was to do something like this. So for example, if you take, apparently, oh yeah, this is
maybe f6. Okay.
f6, I think.
My point was,
f6 is also
if you go c4, then I go king g6, and I think you're in big trouble.
I think I'm just made it, right?
Yeah, f7 next.
So here.
Yeah, f7.
f7 and rook e8. Yeah, it's very unfortunate. Yeah, so here already, wow, taking a pawn is a mistake. So then means can I push? Now I'm threatening h2, right? So you cannot really get adventurous because I check, I push.
Yeah.
So now you cannot go here. Well,
Well,
okay, I guess you still make a draw. But now you actually have to find some kind of
this pattern, there's a very famous study with this pattern boards like rook against pawn where you give check and then go back. I don't know if you know this, it's like pawns on, the pawns are on g2 and h2, and then the king on f6, king on f8, or rook on e1, and then you go all the way one way, all the way the other way, yeah.
Wait,
same idea.
What if I go here? You go back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rook g1, rook e8, draw.
Okay, so king g5, but so which one is, can I actually defend this pawn? Probably not, right? Because you might play h4 now, try to take this. Actually, the funny thing is, but this is a very difficult, well, actually it's not that difficult maybe. If I trade this pawn with all these pawns, f and h pawns are a draw.
Yeah.
So
although
maybe I need to go for this pawn.
That isn't always true though, right? Like it is a draw, but it's not always a draw depending upon where the pawns are. Like if the pawns get too far up the board, then it's usually winning. Yeah,
you need your king to be a bit more active, or you need your king to be on f7. So it's basically kind of Philidor position, and the h pawn doesn't matter. Or sometimes you get like this f pawn, right? You have your king on the short side, rook on the right long side, and the h pawn doesn't matter. So those are the defensive resources. But there's too much going on in this position, so I don't think this position is very simple. Okay, I want to take the pawn. It's a free pawn, and white will take this pawn.
Yeah.
And let's try to find a move that doesn't lose. What's the move that we played here? We played king g8 and h4, king g8. No, I don't want to play king g8. I wanna push.
Can we play king g7?
You're giving me.
So then king f8, because I really don't like the fact that my king is stuck in the corner. And now I know if I manage to manage to take your a pawn, I will not lose the game. But obviously this is a task. Yeah.
So if I do this.
Rook f3.
I go here.
Yeah, there's this trick. So king e8, and if rook a8, king d7, and if king g7, king g6, I'll play king e7. You know when you fail Philidor, there's so if all of the pawns were off the board right now, except the f pawn, you would make a draw here by playing king e7. And then rook a7, king f8. And then king f6, it would be king e8 or g8 also makes a draw, and it's the same pattern.
Wait, this?
Yeah, this, well, okay, I guess g8 is bad, but
okay.
So e8, and then if you go to a8, then king d7, king g6, king e7, and you hold the f6 square.
And we are close to having a result in Gleb Dudin versus Kirk Ghazarian. Oh, this looks like going to be unstoppable checkmate. A nice position for white. Let's see how we got here. This is going to be game over. Probably has ended already. So bishop b5 check, an annoying move to face if you're trying to get a combative game.
A4 is interesting. So most people take on d7 instead of playing a4. But yeah, bishop b5 ab is useful for white. So there's a local master in St. Louis who plays a4 all the time. His name is Roman Kozlov.
I thought you were going to say Fabiano Caruana because I see his games. There's a local player who plays
Oh yeah, there's also a local guy, a little bit less well known than Roman Kozlov, Fabiano Caruana, who played against Nepomniachtchi.
So a6, bishop slides back.
Yeah, and this is like actually kind of annoying to deal with practically, even if objectively like black is doing pretty well. I think that white keeps a lot of pieces on the board and you try to outplay your opponent.
So g6, and we won a bishop.
Wow.
Big achievement. But, oh, okay, here this is actually significant because the c4 bishop is extremely annoying.
Which is why black plays e6 to try to shut it down.
Bishop h4, oh, this.
Oh, g5.
d5 is always a committal move. But in this position, the knight can land on f4, queen goes to f6, so nice squares for the pieces. Oh, he takes. Oh, so this is actually very interesting because now the structure changed. Imbalance, right? Opposite color bishops, and f4 is weak, so I think it doesn't immediately go after the pawn because the queen will just land here. And now the knight is headed to g6.
Yeah, I actually think I understand why knight e7 is a mistake. In the previous position, we would really like to put our queen on the f6 square, and knight e7 blocks that path. So like queen d2, queen f6 would be very nice. And I think the knight's pretty good on c6. It can even go to a5 later. Doesn't need to go to the king side necessarily.
So he goes knight e7, and instead of queen d2, he switches gears and attacks.
I got a
the
breaking
queen
news
side.
that Dudin has actually won this game while we were analyzing this.
Yeah, so we're expecting that result, but interesting choice by white, switching gears and going to this side. As you mentioned, knight a5 was a possibility, but now that the knight has gone to e7, he played queen b3 and d5. d5 is a very interesting choice because you're locking your own bishop in and you're opening this diagonal. Although I have to say this is a very difficult decision to make because you're breaking apart your pawn structure.
On the other hand, you get the e5 square, so I would much prefer to do this than play the move. I think e5 from black instead of ed would be a huge positional mistake because you block in your bishop, and normally in these King's Indian style positions, the plan is to go g5, g4, and you don't have a g-pawn, so what are you going to do?
And without a light square, these attacks are actually not very good for black because usually you have plans associated with h3, right? You want to sacrifice the bishop, or when you, as you mentioned, g5, g4, like you need the assistance of this bishop. So this is what I learned a long time ago. If you're playing a King's Indian with black and you trade your light square to bishop, then it's not very, like your attack is not going to go anywhere. Okay, so bishop took actually, which makes sense. And this trade happened, and now black's king looks weaker to me if the knight lands on f5, but black does have a very strong bishop, and he takes on a4. And after all these trades happen, the rook goes to c6. Wait. The point is you cannot take on e5, c6 is hanging, so he went queen d7 with a huge threat of rook g6. Otherwise, rook c8 would have been a very good move.
Wait, but why didn't he take... So he just thought this was better, I suppose, because I was thinking the h6 pawn is hanging, and why not just capture that? But I guess, yeah, queen d7 is just a better... When you see a good move, look for a better one.
No, that's a dangerous rule to live by.
Well, yeah. Then Gelfand also says, when you see a win, play it, so I don't know who to listen to.
But, you know, queen g4 here, I like queen d7 because it's too kind of tempting, right? Because you're threatening rook takes g6, winning a queen, and at the same time, queen g4 and checkmating this king. This king is actually very lonely, and this rook is not a really defensive piece. So the queen went to a5, but I think this is just made by force because we win this pawn. I think queen f6 was also strong, no? And then, my rook is hanging. Okay, so at some point I have to go rook e1. So he went rook e1 immediately. Complete domination, and we have seen this dominations, this kind of wins before. I wonder if rook h6 is a threat here. If I pass the move, can we do this? F6 is a move, so no.
Yeah. I think we've analyzed maybe 3 or 4 major piece endgames, and we keep saying the same thing, which is in major piece endgames, the #1 factor is king safety, and in every one of those games, the side with the weaker king was on the defense, and not the better side.
Yeah, and so rook e1, f6 was played because queen g4 was a huge threat, and this is just game over. This rook is just dominating, and queen d7 Really nice win by Gleb. Congratulations to him. Let's go back to this Jason game. Let's see what happened. So we have a few moves. No, not here. So we left off here. Rook g3, king went to... rook g3 we didn't consider, right? Because we just wanted to take... Well, what we looked at, I think... We saw some version of this. So the king went to h6, and now he takes the pawn. And his point is the king on h6 is worse than what we were seeing when in this position when we were taking on h3 and taking the pawn, and the king in some positions could go to f6 and at least also being closer to the pawn. So rook g3, king h6, rook h3, and
yeah, this might have been a very clever nuance by Akshat. And I suppose his only move here is rook g3. Otherwise, oh no, actually you can play
remember
king
rook g3 we had this.
Oh yeah, and then the a pawn queens.
Wait, but no, now I actually queen with a check, because in the other position you were queening with a check, I was mating you. But in this position we have a queen. Okay, so rook h3, I expect white will take it. King g6, king g8, so maybe here. And what do we do? I wish we didn't. I didn't have all these pawns on the board. So let's say I check. I think if you take here, this is very comfortable already.
Right. Yeah.
I think I'm quite happy with what has happened.
Yeah, just rook a3 and then c4, and we'll probably trade the c pawn for the a pawn, and it's just Philidor's. Not even a hard version.
Okay, so this is something he'll be happy with. And in Group A, we're about to have a result, or we actually have a result that Yakubboev has won his second game in a row.
Wow.
This position looks absolutely wild. Wow, I'm just trying to look at the material.
Black is up 2 rooks.
Yeah, white is up, and he's about to get another queen. So there's a lot of pieces missing for white. And we were looking at the opening before the show started, and we were looking at the position, and it looked like black out of the opening got an extremely comfortable position. So he just gives up this pawn, we're saying, right? And then gets the center, grabs the pawn, secures the center, a6, you know, you're giving your bishop a square on a7, so it stays on the diagonal. Queen steps out of the way. I like this move, knight e7, because he knows rook e1 is coming, and he doesn't want to be the rook eyeing the same diagonal, it's the same file as the queen. So he plays knight e7 and sidesteps with the queen.
Right. Otherwise, maybe white would have tried some knight takes d5 tactic followed by c4. So if you play some non-move, then
so something like this.
Yeah, rook d1,
even castle, right?
Maybe. Yeah, take and c, or even e4. Yeah.
E4.
One of these ideas, and white's position cannot be that bad.
Yeah, now all of a sudden this is looking quite scary, right? So he played queen c7, and I really like black's position here. Next I'm going to castle. I will put a rook on g8. You know, it's giving me Dingler and Nepomniachtchi vibes a bit,
right?
Although not quite. And e4, and e4 was a mistake in that game too. But now d4. But this position is just so comfortable because we have the 2 bishops, we have the nicer center, more space. b5 is actually a huge threat, trying to trap the knight. Next we will castle. And knight g6 to f4, because there's no bishop to fight against it. So white plays b3, so the knight is not trapped. The knight is headed to g6. Black is not in a hurry to castle. Black can actually castle maybe either way if he chooses to, although I don't see why he would castle the other side. I don't think black ever castled in this game. He left his king in the center, which is a possibility when the center is locked and there is no way to break through. So c4.
Yeah, I think that white's compensation in these sorts of positions for the bishop with the double g-pawns is the f5 square, and there's just no way to really access that. Knight h4, knight f5 you would like to do, but it's simply impossible. And the other knight on a4 is nowhere near the f5 square. So I think, yeah, black just has a very nice position with no downside, really.
So if he played something like rook g8, maybe we would play knight h4, right? So the knight g6 move possibly can be made with knight f5, at least get some kind of play. Although tactically, maybe it doesn't work here. Maybe here we can at least go queen h6 and try to fight against his pawns and try to put a knight on f5. But knight g6 just stops this idea. It's very nice. c4, and black doesn't react. And now we have a pass pawn. Knight goes to f4, bishop g4, and the attack is coming already because I simply want to take, rook g8, and bring my queen in. So out of desperation, excuse me, white decides to give up the exchange. And I think we're going to see how all the pieces fell. So d3, really like this move, opening the bishop. So g3 was played, rook g8, and taking this is not possible because of the pin. So all kinds of trouble for white. So instead, knight went to f5 finally. So the knight did get there, but at a huge cost. So now bishop joins the game. Another target in the position.
Whoa.
Yeah, giving up that cannot feel good. But okay, now at least the knight is joining the game, and now b5. Another really nice move, making sure the knight doesn't land on d5, targeting this weakness on c4, or at least creating removing this guard of the d5 square. So takes, rook c1. So I have to say this not as simple as it looks. Oh wow, knight b5. So the idea is takes. Oh, did he miss rook d8?
He might have missed rook d8. Backwards moves are the hardest ones to see, but that is quite a miss.
Rook c7, but now it's just too many pieces. And f5.
Yeah, it's just game over.
So queen h6 now is trying to create counterplay, check. Knight e6, backwards moves. 2 backwards moves with the knight. Rook a7, queen b6. Okay, the rook is trapped.
Yeah, black is no longer interested in attacking. He's up so much material that as long as he consolidates in any sort of way, you can give up so many pieces here and still be winning. Like he just hangs his knight on e6, but it doesn't matter. We have too much material.
A really comfortable win by the Uzbek Grandmaster, his second win in a row. He had that really beautiful game against Sevian yesterday when the rook from b1 went to b6, f6, f8.
Yeah, like a
really
retro puzzle, yeah.
A really nice win, so that's 2 in a row, so congratulations to him on another comfortable win. And the game we were looking at in this section was Dara versus Abu, and here it also looks like we are headed towards Draj territory. So we started around here. We saw this knight trade, we saw the rook trade, f6 was played, e5, and
not even
takes.
letting king d6, e5 happen.
Why not f5? So I think the point is this pawn structure can be annoying because now you cannot really...
I've just received news that they've actually drawn their game. So the final position, they agreed to a draw.
So that makes sense. So rook goes back, and now this is just 3 versus 2, and most importantly, this bishop came to life, and the bishop left the game. Okay, move 40, 3 versus 2. Not a lot of danger left in the position. Rook d2 is possible, king d2 should be possible, so very reasonable time to end the game. So we still will have a 3-way tie, right? So Daro, Benjamin Bok, and Christopher Yu.
Yeah, the only thing that could change is Benjamin Gledura, if he wins against Illia Nyzhnyk, could tie for first, I believe.
Another opposite color bishop position.
But there's a lot of work to be done.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. But 2 pawns is 2 pawns, but there are rooks on the board, which is quite helpful. So for example, if I take...
Well, yeah.
That loses. So if I take this way, this is also risky,
Rook
right?
f7. It's the one diagonal rule, right? So I can set up a fortress. Like if you play rook e5 here, then I can play... Oh, I was thinking if you go away... Oh yeah, going away is smart because I don't have time for d5. If you go away to c4 though, is that fine?
I'm afraid. Okay, if I go here, you take?
Right.
No, you take... I don't know. So rook and game with 2 pawns.
Could I take on d5 though?
d5 I will take back. Now rook and game with 1 pawn. And your king is cut off. So if I have time to do this, I would be quite thrilled about this.
Yeah, there's still a lot of danger here. I was hoping I could just trade rooks without changing the structure.
But okay, so can I go here? Here you actually can trade rooks. No, here you're gonna win a pawn.
Oh.
So maybe this shouldn't
wait,
be played.
why can't, what, wait. If I play the move bishop g... Oh, no. No, you're right. Because bishop g3, you win my pawn, and then when you check me, I attack your rook. Oh, right, that also just wins a piece.
Well, okay, you can save the piece, but this is
not
a
what I
dream, right? So let's see, the position that we have is after bishop d5, and is it possible to play rook f8? But rook f8, I'm quite happy, right? I also want to point out that this is the wrong square. And this is always something you have to think about. This is something that I learned, like Robert has when I was doing commentary with him, and when I watched this, always mentioned this. When there's a bishop, some kind of bishop-pawn endgame, always look at the this corner. And actually, once I didn't win a game against, I forget, but I was up 2 pawns in a bishop and pawn endgame, and I allowed this sacrifice where he gave up his bishop and then king ran to the other square, this square on the, like this king would run to h1, and I couldn't win. And I just completely forgot that it's a defensive mechanism, and that was very sad.
Yeah.
I was just up 2 pawns.
It's unfortunate. The thing that always stands out to me in like this, I just really hate that the bishop is aligned with our rook on a7. So if we play a casual move like rook f8, king d3, e4, like black passes somehow king g7, e4, then c4, well, it would be an unfortunate trick. So we shouldn't fall for this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can just...
It's like my biggest concern. I'm like, oh no, the bishop on f2 is attacking the rook on a7.
But how is black going to entangle? So at some point you will play king f6. And then, how do you move your pieces? Oh, maybe
we
you
can
move
give the f7. I don't know if we have to care about that. Like if we play king f6 and then like white doesn't do anything and we play king e5 and just give the f7 pawn, I think I'm happy to play this endgame as long as I can play the move d5.
Where do you want to go?
Oh, I was thinking potentially I could play king e5 here.
King e5,
because if you play rook f7, d5 might actually be an attempt. Although here maybe you play e4. Some way.
e4.
No.
No, I don't like to have this separated last pawns. I think this is scary. Okay, but I understand your thinking. You just want to give up this pawn. But rook f8 is very passive, right? So let's say here king g7. Maybe, what can I do? So can I want to get in like g5, h4 with my king on g4 and then be like, you cannot move. But immediately I can't, of course, because g5, bishop h4.
Yeah.
And this...
It's always the danger of putting pawns on the same color as your opponent's opposite colored bishop. They might hang one day.
This is silly. Ah.
Yeah, rook d7, and if it's only 1 pawn, then it might not be so dangerous.
Yeah, 1 pawn and still activity. So if I win a pawn and trade rooks, I'll be quite happy. Okay, a lot of work to be done. And the last game we haven't looked at is Sevian versus Yasser Quesada.
Sevian has lost 2 games in a row, I believe, so...
No, he's up on exchange. He did lose 2 games in a row. He lost to Bach, and yesterday he lost to Yakubboev. And what is going on? Let's count pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, he's up a pawn and a exchange. Is it so easy though? This knight is quite annoying. So what to do? It's not easy to move this knight. c5 is hanging. It doesn't look so simple. I would like to play queen d3, but my knight hangs. This pawn, can I defend this pawn?
Always play bishop f1.
With king g1 and e3. I want to be able to play knight c3 at some point. I don't want to hang this pawn with a check. I just don't think that's a very good option for me. So I just want to defend the pawn. At some point I need to play knight c3, but knight c3 hangs. Okay, if I pass a move. So if I pass a move, and you take, I just want to see if how dangerous this is. I think this is scary, right? I was
thinking maybe you could even take on c5 with your knight. I wasn't sure how you were going to react to that.
Oh, I was so afraid of bishop c5. I forgot about this. But it's my only move, right?
I'm actually...
Oh, you couldn't. It's kind of funny here, because here this has to be very bad.
And b4 is coming.
b4 is coming. No, knight d5 is not coming. But okay, here you're paralyzed, right? Because you cannot take my pawn. I will simply take. No.
Yeah, I missed that my queen had very little squares.
I mean, I completely missed knight c5, but rook a3 was a nice resource. Which means after knight c3, rook a3 is a huge threat in that line we're looking at. So bishop f8, I'm just passing. Knight c3. So what I was trying to figure out, how scary is this for black? And I think this looks quite scary because I want to check on take. And if you take, this looks... without this knight, my rook all of a sudden looks very scary, right?
Yeah. I don't like this position at all for black.
So if you
don't trust
back,
it.
now my rook comes in, I think.
So we're talking about major piece endgames, your king being weak. Well, one side has major pieces and the other side doesn't have as many major pieces.
So if we do a roundup of this section, so Yakubboev won with black. Nyzhnyk, Gledura, we have this endgame. So rook e3 was played, so rook f7, we're gonna see those lines we're analyzing, something very similar because this look actually very forced. White has a very strong threat. Dariusz and Abhi, they drew. Benjamin bought Christopher, you drew a long time ago. So the two games we have going are some Sevian versus Yasser Quesada and Illia Nyzhnyk versus Benjamin Gledura. So he plays knight c3 immediately. So he just, wait, so if I take, he just doesn't care because...
Bishop g2.
The way I said because is like I was about to say something very smart, but I'm still unsure. Okay, so rook e3, huge threat. So I'm going to take.
Oh, we're actually going to get an interview with Dudin, which is very cool.
25. Okay, so knight c3 immediately. It's not a move we were considering. And I would, so bishop c5 is also a possibility here, but is it possible? Queen e5 are these lines, oh, this is not possible. Now this is defended. And, but now this looks actually somehow more dangerous because f5 is possibly hanging in some lines. This queen b8, queen b7 idea is there, and taking this, now e2 is defended, and e2 is defended, and now this rook is going to come in, and again f5 is hanging here, queen e6 is a huge threat attacking this bishop, so this knight c3 move was a great move by Sam Sevian, immediately trying to dislodge this knight from c5, and also rook a3 is a threat, so if it were white to move, white could also play rook a3 and ask this queen where it's going, and the queen actually doesn't have too many options. The only square we found in the other line was c4, so the queen is very uncomfortable. And we do have a guest with us. We have Gleb Dudin, who just won his game against Kirk Ghazarian. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at your game. So take us through your game, please.
Yeah, so let's start from the first move. Basically, I never play e4, but these days, I mean, it's hard to play against these guys who just prepare against everything. So I had to surprise, and yeah, just e4 was a good way. So c5, mainly I prepare for e5, but okay, e4, c5, knight f3. Here, expected knight c6. Okay, anyway, I was just going to play something.
Probably bishop b5.
Yeah, bishop b5, as you can predict. But yeah, didn't know much theory here. So d6. Okay, here basically I started to think on my own. I knew some lines, played it a few times, but okay, bishop b5. Just wanted to get some like new game. Get off the beaten track. Bishop d7, a4. Yeah, okay, so basically here we started just to play on with our own head. And okay, a6.
So you think he also didn't know these lines because he went c5 and wasn't expecting this?
I guess he didn't expect a4. He didn't like. He plays a lot of things, but yeah, just a4 must be a rare move. So this is what the whole idea of my opening, just to play something new. Bishop c4, knight c6. Yeah, it looks like English opening for black, something similar. Knight f6, rook e1, bishop g4. Yeah, here d3. There was a moment he could have played bishop f3, queen f3, knight e5, queen g3, knight c4, dc.
So what do you think about the structure?
Yeah, this should be pretty good for white. So just we go knight c4, bishop g5, then rook d1, e5.
Oh,
so what
okay.
is
Oh, okay, so
pressing.
black has to play with e6. Not
Yeah,
to
but
lock
after
him into
a6 we have weakness on d6, so it's knight c3, bishop f4, or maybe later, yeah.
Yeah, rook d1. So your moves are just easy.
Yeah, I just have a easy game and
So you went g6.
yeah, bishop g7.
And you got this bishop.
Yeah,
so how
I
did
took
you
two
feel
bishops. I knew some lines from Rosalima
here?
with d6. There are similar positions, but white has bishop on f1. I have some small edge, so it's exactly what I like to play.
So you play
c3, e6, bishop. Yeah, here, okay. Probably he wants to play d5 at some point. And
So you're stopping
yeah.
d5.
Just white moves are so natural, so that I don't even have to commentate them.
So how did you feel about this g5?
Yeah, from this moment, like after each two moves of him, I was just he was surprising me on each move.
So you weren't expecting g5?
I was, but I thought it can be great for black, because here I still have this light square bishop, and he doesn't really have any push on the king side, so I just use this king weaknesses on at some point.
And d5 here.
Yeah,
compared
d5,
to our
ed.
position, and you go
Oh,
back, right?
Okay, these positions are, yeah, maybe you should take with the knight, but yeah, still I just play bishop a2 and
Oops.
or bishop b3.
It doesn't matter, probably. Right?
Yeah,
And
and
just weakness is even worse.
yeah, he has nothing where to push, and I just knight e5 somewhere. It's very easy.
So he went knight h5, so you saved your bishop, and knight
Yeah,
f4.
knight
Were you
h4.
surprised by knight f4 too?
He has to continue his line, so I think knight f4 is logical at this point.
So you take, d4.
Yeah, here I go d4, and yeah, I thought it just should be better. Yeah, rook c8, rook c1. Here I was calculating d5 instead of okay, yeah, d5 also here is possible, but ed, just bishop b3. It's visible that black is just like busted. d5,
Yeah.
f4, king weaknesses.
Oh, here you wanted to go d5.
Yeah, but it's a bit premature because I don't have to rush. Yeah, knight a5, bishop a2, but I don't have to do this at all.
So you just centralize your rook and knight e7. And knight e7 is actually a mistake by him.
Yeah.
It's something computer thinks is a mistake. And with that, it's a mistake because maybe this queen f6 move is not available. But you switch gears, and then now you're going after this pawn.
Yeah, I think he wanted to play like positionally, wanted to put knight on g6 and then just try to wait. So yeah, I played queen b3, queen d7, but I wasn't really thinking of d5 at first, because I thought I should go for f4 pawn, something like queen b4. So the idea is I want to play queen d2, but then he has knight g6. So first, no, just imagine, I want to go h4, and then I'm threatening queen d2, because after knight g6 I have h5.
Okay, I'll just pass the move. So the
Yeah,
idea
something
is,
like this.
so knight g6 can be met by h5.
Yeah.
And we win a pawn. And this is actually difficult to deal with, because it's not like he wants to ever put h5, because he will just come and take the pawn eventually. So why did you change your mind and decide to go for d5?
Yeah, so mainly after d5 I was looking on e5. I thought that knight h4 is not playable here because of bishop f6, and I'm not in time to play bishop e2 and bishop g4. But instead I can just go knight d2 and f5, bishop d3, then knight c4. And if he tries to, yeah, I just have, I'm completely controlling light squares, and yeah, he has.
And if he takes, you take with the
Yeah,
bishop.
knight f5
And you take.
takes, yeah, queen f5, f3.
And just a complete
Yeah.
domination. Probably has to
Yeah,
try
but then
this, right?
it's still very bad. I just go knight e4, and he has no chances to attack.
Yeah, we talk a lot about in this commentary this knights versus bishop, the long prospect of a bishop, and sometimes how the knight just dominates. It just seems such a recurring theme. So he decided to go d5 and he takes. And how did you feel about this trade? Because this looks very exposed now that the pawns are traded.
I actually was a bit pessimistic about my position. So I was thinking that I have some slight edge because of the king weaknesses. But it shouldn't be too bad for black.
Why? What is black's counterplay?
Well, basically, my main idea is to go knight h4, knight a5 somewhere. And as we can see later, the main idea is to try to exchange as many pawns as possible.
On the queen side?
Yeah, and of course, white cannot exchange the queens. So someone we should... yeah, we can see later what happened. So he took, rook b8, queen d5, bishop b2. So here I thought that he has to give up d6 and f4 pawns, and just, for example, bishop g7. So I don't know, rook d6, and something like queen b5, queen d2, a5.
Oh, just play for counterplay and utilize
a4, a4, e5, and that just bet everything on a pawn, and maybe he will survive. Maybe not, but...
If he doesn't get mated, he'll survive.
Yeah, but I'm also playing with fire here, because a pawn is rolling, and either I mate him or it's...
Or he gets a queen.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but instead he went bishop e5, and you must have been really happy to see this move. And I really like this move you played, queen d7.
Yeah, basically bishop e5. I was just sitting for 3 minutes with the, with the same face, and I didn't know how to react, because it's just 1-0.
Yeah, immediately. And
yeah, king is absolutely exposed. Yeah, queen e7 is a nice move to finish, but anyway, it's a harakiri.
So you go here, and then with this, you come completely dominating on the c file, and once the rook comes in, this is just complete domination. Yeah, really nice win, and a really nice finish to the game. Congratulations on your win. Who do you play in the next 2 rounds? Do you know?
I'm playing Kantor.
With black?
Gergely Kantor, yes, with black.
And then you finish with?
Akshat Chandra.
Akshat Chandra. Okay, well, good luck to you in the next games, and hopefully we will see you again after some victories. And there was Gleb Dudin after his victory against Kirk Ghazarian. And let's take a look at the standings, as we do have a lot of results coming in. So as of right now in Group A, we have a big tie, the same tie we had when we started the game between Dariusz Swiercz, Christopher Yu, and Benjamin Bach with 4 points, and Nodirbek Yakubboev, who won his game in a really convincing fashion, half a point behind. And if Benjamin Gledura and Illia Nyzhnyk draw their game, they will join Yakubboev for a tie for 4th place. And in the B group, we also have quite a few results. And so far, actually the game we're looking at, Jason Liang versus Akshat Chandra, that game ended in a draw, which puts Jason in a tie for 1st place. But Felix, he's not going to lose his game, so he will either be leading with 5.5 points or at least 5 points, and it looks like he's going to take a very big lead. So actually, let's take a quick look at that game and see if he has made any progress. Where we left off, it was around move, I believe, somewhere around here, right? So queen c8 was played. We're thinking actually queen e8, and eventually he took on g7. So what we thought would happen happened. And so now the position transposed to queen versus 2 rooks, and queen, the side with the queen also has 2 pawns. And this must be a huge advantage for white, of course, because the pawn is just rolling. I wonder if a5 was possible, but maybe he's afraid of some checks, so he just plays a prophylactic move, king a2. Rook goes to c5, so king d7, trying to go closer to the pawns. King a3. So now white is starting to get ready to push the pawn, but I still think it's a bit tricky with the rooks. King goes back, so check again. So now this must be achievement to push the king away. And king b4, defending all the pawns. So at some point, white will play b3 because these pawns are hanging. And so let's say if I put a rook on a1, you play b3, and I go king d7, what is the way for white to win? Maybe a5 immediately is winning. And by immediately winning, I mean this endgame.
So actually the Liang Chandra game was prematurely called, so there haven't been any results at the top. But nevertheless, it's very likely that Felix is going to be at least a full point ahead, at least a half point ahead of everyone else, if not just a full point.
Should we take a look at the other game quickly before we sign off, because that's also very relevant for our standing. So where we left off was here. So check was played, pawn was taken. So I think we're analyzing this. I don't think we saw all of this. So rook g3 and king goes to f6. So my table base tells me that every move is okay for black. I would expect, what would I expect? Probably a pawn push. Oh, we were looking at this, right? But we're looking at this with the pawn on h2, which actually I'm starting to forget how that happened.
Right. But probably it's very similar. I don't think you can stop the pawn from getting to h2. And I mean, we prematurely call this a draw, but maybe it's going to be a draw anyway.
So the game is still going. So we're thinking, but every time we call something, it doesn't happen. So it's most likely this game would end in a draw, and we think that Felix will be able to convert his advantage, which will keep him still in clear first place.
Right. And in the A group, none of the leaders have really changed. So with that, please join us tomorrow for VAR's lecture on Bobby Fischer's beautiful games played against Boris Spassky, Mikhail Tal, and of course some games in the famous Bent Larsen and Taimanov matches where of course Fischer went 6-0. So please join us tomorrow on the World Chess Hall of Fame's YouTube channel. Yakubboev is going to be analyzing some Fischer games.
And thank you everyone for joining us today. We will be back here tomorrow at the usual time, so please join us for the round 8 of the Spring Chess Classic.
Have a good one.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Any reproduction or distribution of this content without the express written consent of the St. Louis Chess Club is prohibited.